Scott Stillman, welcome to Dirtbag Rich.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You wrote in your book, Wilderness, the Gateway to the Soul, that a lot of people have told you, do what you love, and that you love walking desert canyons. And you ask, how do you do that for a living? You've been trying to figure it out for half of a lifetime. What have you figured out, Scott? Give me all your secrets right on the top here.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really interesting part of that book, and it's a pain point, a major pain point. That book was written at a time of when I was young and vulnerable and and questioning a life that just didn't fit, and walking in nature for days at a time, backpacking, is the only thing at that point that felt good. That made me feel like myself, like a real
Hmm.
person.
How old
Um,
were you when you wrote those words?
it's 10 years ago, so 40s.
Early 40s. Yeah,
Yep.
good. And so, what have you been doing in order to spend most of your time outdoors? How you have some beautiful books, Scott. I guess I
Yeah,
should provide some context here. You're a really talented writer. You're good on social media. Nice photographs, very quotable, shareable stuff on multiple platforms. And I feel like there are a lot of people who post beautiful stuff about the outdoors on social media, and there's always a question in the back of my head. It's the question that you asked right there, which is, um, how do you go out and spend deep time in nature, and also have some sort of like a reasonable income and some
sure.
form of security at the same time? What have you been doing?
So I suppose I've always been this way. It started as a small child. My first love was skateboarding, and I had no interest in school. I had no interest in any kind of career. All I wanted to do was skateboard 24 hours a day if I could. Because when you're young, you have that kind of energy. Um, so while other friends had, I guess they would get a part-time job or they could work at the local pizza restaurant or something like that. I decided I didn't want to waste my time with putting putting that many hours into just doing something I didn't want to do. So I've always come up with creative ways to make income. So I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur, I would say. So some of the earliest things that I did, I would go door to door and offer to mow people's lawns, shovel snow in the winter. I came up with a deck cleaning business where I'd refurbish people's decks. And I did my parents' deck first. I did exactly half of it, and it took a photo of a half perfectly beautiful deck and the other half of this dingy, gray, old, unrefurbished deck. And I literally was just this little kid walking from door to door with a picture in my hand saying, "Want your deck to look like this?" you
Hmm.
know? And I started to realize that I could make a whole lot more money in a whole lot less time if I just worked for myself. If I didn't get a job, if I figured out creative ways to do things, and that evolved. And really, I write about all of this in my book. I don't want to grow up, but I've done that with every single income making opportunity I've ever had. Um, in sales, I figured out ways. You have to start kind of full time in the beginning, but I figured out ways to work with my employers so that I don't have to work 2 days a week.
Hmm.
Um, and then in businesses, I've never had the goal of making money. Money was secondary. I just knew I needed to figure out a way so I could be in nature more.
Hmm.
So as my life progressed, I figured out creative ways to earn income working very, very little. And for example, I talk about this, and I don't want to grow up. I took an insurance job. And I split it with my wife, and we got it down to the point where I think we're only working like 4 days a month. And all the other agents were working like 60 hours a week and all of this stuff. But we didn't care about that much money. And they were making a lot of money and we weren't, but we were making enough so that we could travel. And then finally, even that that 4 days a month, a lot of people might say, well, that's ridiculously good. But at some point that even got in the way too much.
Mm,
So we even sold everything. And simplified our lives into a camper. And a lot of people think, oh yeah, you got to have a $80,000 to buy a Sprinter van or something like that. That's what all the kids think today. But that's not what we did. We traded in our Toyota Corolla and bought a pickup truck, a 1997 three-quarter ton pickup truck for $4,400, and it was in good shape. And I did my research to know what kind of model to buy, which ones were reliable. I didn't just wing the whole thing. And then I bought a camper. I think the slide-in truck camper was around $7,000, and I had that money from selling other crap that I had. Well, the other car, I guess. We had two cars. My wife had a car. I had a car. We sold both cars and had enough for the camper van, and that was it. And we started traveling full time on the road, and we're like, wow, this is way cheaper than living at home. And we're kayaking every day and camping and backpacking and mountain biking, all these things. And that's where really when I started writing.
mm,
Um, so I started writing about that adventure, and as much as I wanted to write about the things I was seeing, what kept coming, I was like, I want to teach young kids that they can do this, because so many kids today think, oh, I have to go work a regular job and get a degree, and people that don't do that are trust fund kids, and they just have a bunch of money already, and that's why we see these social media posts and this and that, because they're just rich kids, and that's just not true. It's not what I see when I'm on the road. There are other people like me who have figured out, and you who have figured out creative ways to work and make an income, but make it be not the priority of their life,
mm.
if that
Maybe
makes sense.
it makes sense. And a lot of the stuff that you write about and post about is really in line with the stuff I wrote about in Dirtbag Rich. And you wrote a really nice blurb for the book. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can you just take me through some of the specific jobs and positions that you and your wife Valerie have held? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who think it's just hard to find a position where you are not required to work full time. I'm visiting some family on the East Coast right now, and they've got
Mm-hmm.
pretty standard jobs. And I asked a question about like, hey, if you run out of paid time off, can you take more time off that's unpaid? And some people laughed at me. They're like, no, that's not how normal jobs work. And I said, but could they
Right.
work that way? And so I feel like that's a big block. And I would love some specific examples from your own life as to how you've actually made money in ways that do not require full time, 40-hour plus a week servitude.
Sure. Um, so for example, I mean, I've never really wanted a normal job, so I seek these jobs out, and a lot of them aren't jobs. Some of them are businesses that I've created myself, like writing books. Um, but I just, it's all about mindset, right? What is your priority? How many days do you want to work? Write that down. How much money do you need to make per month? Write that down. Don't just willy-nilly it and go look for any old job. Put a list of things on paper of exactly what you want. Then start looking for a job based on those things. And so that's what I've always done. When we moved to Boulder, Colorado from Ohio, um, we did not move there to work jobs. We moved there to play. So I kind of got an idea in my head of what I wanted to do. Part time, very 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 part time work, full time pay. That was my goal. Full time. Um, I'm sorry, part time work, full time pay. So I just got out. I guess what did I do? I probably got on Craigslist or whatever the internet job listings were at that time. And I started looking through stuff, and I saw work from home insurance sales. So I'm like, oh, okay, if I'm working from home, 100% commission. It's like, okay, I could maybe see if that works. And so I went and interviewed. And of course, I didn't tell them this in the interview. I don't know, I wanted to work like 2 days a week. I just applied for the job, they gave it to me because these type of jobs tend to hire anyone because they have nothing to lose. It's a commission job. And so they hired me. They said, "Yep, we'll send you leads each week, and you're gonna go, um, go to these different people that have requested insurance from our company." I said, "Okay." So they trained me how to do it. But I had my wife make the calls. So my wife spent, I think maybe an hour a day in the beginning, and then I would run insurance appointments, but I'd only do them 2 days a week. So she'd just stack me bell to bell, from like 9 a.m. till like 9 p.m. practically in the very beginning. And sure enough, that worked. I mean, that gave us plenty of income to do what we wanted to do. We were living simply. We just lived in a little 2-bedroom apartment and drove used cars, no car payments. We live very simply. We've always lived simply. And then we just we're like, well, how can we make this even less work? So I don't know. I could go. I mean, I don't know how long you want me to talk about this. I
Well,
could go for
I would just love
forever.
to
But
hear if you've held any other jobs aside from the insurance one, which is a super cool example. And especially,
um,
did you have any high paying jobs from earlier in your life, in your 20s and 30s, that allowed you to accrue a large like nest egg that then let you take the risks necessary to enter into this lifestyle that you found in the 40s?
no, not really. I moved to Colorado. My savings was a credit card with a $10,000 limit on it. That's what I considered my
All
savings.
right. Yeah, that's pretty minimal.
um, and luckily, the person that rented us the apartment was did not check like income and all that. So we had to, again, it came down to, we had to go through a few different organizations to find someone that was good with me moving in without a job yet and things like that. So you do have to get a little creative. You just have to think outside the box and say, even though the rest of the world does it this way, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to figure out a way to do it my way. Um, so other jobs. I went and sold cars for a while. Um, and I started full time because that's how they had to start me. But then they had that like open vacation policy, which is pretty funny. It means you can take as much vacation as you want, but everyone's afraid to. Everyone feels guilty for doing it. So
Ah.
actually, it results in no one taking vacation, right? I have
That's
so
what I
many
was
friends that
asking
have this.
my family members about, which is, can you just take unlimited unpaid vacation? It sounds like you
Oh yeah,
found a
they can, but
position where you can.
Everyone
Yeah.
frowns on it. So I took my unlimited vacation. So finally, they sat me down in the office and say, "Okay, Scott, you're taking a lot of vacation. Like, how much vacation do you actually need?" And so I just threw out a number. I said 8 weeks. 8 weeks vacation would be good. And then so they gave me that, but of course, I used that 8 weeks up in no time at all. So then I came and I said, I'm quitting. And I'd saved up a little bit of money at this point. So they said, "Okay, well, why are you quitting?" I said, "Well, I need more free time to do what I really moved to Colorado to do, which is to go on these backpacking trips, these mountain biking adventures, kayaking adventures, and whatnot." And they said, "Well, what would it take for you to stay?" I said, "Okay, that's an interesting question." I said, "Well, the best sales tend to happen on the weekend. So how about if I just work weekends?" And they did it. They gave me that.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but I did that for I think about a year maybe, and then I quit that job to go live on the road in the camper. And they said, "Okay, well, how long are you gonna be in the camper?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe a year." And they said, "Okay, well, we enjoyed having you. If look us up in a year." Well, I guess they took note of that, and my manager at the time had quit, I guess, around right about a year later. And they actually called me up while I was in the camper. And they said, "Hey, the manager left. We need a management person really bad. Would you come back?" And we were about done with that trip anyways. And it was actually a really good salary. So I went back to working full time for like a year, just to kind of
Mm-hmm.
save up money again because I just lived on the road and spent some. So so these things happen. You could say, well, you're just really lucky because you had all these things just line up perfectly for you. But it all starts with intention. So if you have the intention that you want these things, then those things come to you. Versus, if you have the intention that, oh, I just want to make a bunch of money, then you might make a bunch of money, but you also might work 60 hours a week. So
Well,
it
it
really just
sounds
comes
to me
down to
like
what you.
you were really focusing on sales positions that were results oriented, and you negotiated with your employers to find like very specific terms and timing that worked for you. Or
Right.
with the insurance example, it was completely on your own schedule from the very beginning. Did
Exactly.
you ever have like a normal full time job? I know you said you never wanted one, but did you ever end up taking what most people call a normal job at any point in your young adulthood or
I
any
did,
time
yeah.
still?
When I still lived in Ohio, and I hadn't really. Colorado changed everything because once I moved to Colorado, all I wanted to do was play. Ohio is surrounded by working people. So, yeah, I didn't really see any other way of doing it. So in Ohio, yeah, I worked jobs. I worked for a bank as a loan
Oh, here we
officer for
go.
a while.
Here we
Yep.
go. This is
Uh,
very outside of your public presence, Scott. I want to hear this. This is the good
yeah.
stuff.
Well, it's not
Where,
very interesting.
Well, oh, but it is.
It,
This is very interesting because there are so many people out there who are wondering exactly how to get from something like a bank job in Ohio into a
Mhm.
super outdoorsy, self-sustained lifestyle in Colorado. Tell me about your bank job.
Yeah. So I worked as a loan officer, so someone who does loans for a
Everyone's
bank, and
favorite
that was
person. Yes.
yeah, it was a full-time job, and it, I was just figuring out life, and I didn't really know what I wanted yet, so yeah, I just got a job, and I don't have a college education, so this is a job anyone can get, um, but
I mean, did you have the same
what specific
personality?
questions do you have?
Yeah.
What's up?
I mean, who were you back then? Did you still have this nature wanderlust side to you when you were working at the bank? Or were you like really a different person
No.
living a different life?
I moved from once I got too old for skateboarding, and that does unfortunately happen. It hurts too much when you fall. um, I um, I kind of just did what everyone else does in Ohio. Drank too much, partied. That's really the only thing you do for fun.
Mm,
And if
hmm
I think back, if I was still there, yeah, I was just think about like, oh, I'd be overweight, drink too much, party too much, eat too much, and probably be miserable because I wouldn't be living my dream.
hmm.
Um,
So
but I
how
guess I
long were
just
you?
did that job because I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And how long were you in that phase of life?
Let's see, I probably worked there for 5 years.
Okay. I mean, that's significant. I didn't
Hmm.
pick up any of that in when I was reading a couple of your books. And this is
Hmm.
the part that really interests me because I want to know what the first glimmers of change and transition were for you. Because there are so many people living some version of loan officer in Ohio, drink too much, party too much.
Yeah.
And like what was your gateway drug?
My wife and I finally sat down at the kitchen table. I remember this very vividly. And I was about to turn 30. My 30th birthday was coming up. And I said, if we don't do something now, it's never going to happen. We're just going to get sucked into this suburbia life. And I want to explore the world. I have bigger dreams than Ohio.
Okay,
Um,
I'm going to stop you right there. How did you even get to
yeah.
that point of saying, I want to explore the world, I have bigger dreams? Like, was it like books or movies, or did you have some mentor or friend who inspired
It was
you? Because,
it was
yeah,
books. I've
yeah.
always been a reader. Edward Abbey, John Muir have always been two of my favorite authors. And you read those books and you just want to be there. You just
Hmm.
want to be climbing mountains. You just want to be exploring these desert canyons. And I knew they existed.
Hmm.
But I knew I couldn't get to them. And I fell in love with the mountains on a ski trip, a high school ski trip out to Winter Park, Colorado.
Hmm.
And looking out the window of that train that we took, the Amtrak train, I absolutely fell head over heels in love with the Rocky Mountains. So that planted the seed, and I've always had that kind of utopia vision in the back of my mind of, man, wouldn't it be great to just snowboard every day?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what was it. That was when people ask me why you moved to Colorado, I said snowboard.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, that can't be the only reason. I'm like, that is the reason. I want to go
Um,
snowboarding.
if I remember correctly, you did an outward bound trip or semester back in the college years. Is that
I
correct?
did, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that seems
did,
pretty
yeah.
influential.
Yeah, so I was in college, and I was ready to drop out. I was completely disenchanted with all of it, and except the party, and that part was cool. I did like that, but the classes, I would just fall asleep in. It was just so incredibly boring, and I had no interest in any of the careers. So I just started doing research, and I found this organization called Outward Bound, and I was like, oh, and they even give college credits for this. Okay, I'll make this part of my curriculum. So I I signed up for a 3 month uh, semester long backpacking course with Outward Bound, and um, and that really changed my life more than anything. Was that trip?
Yeah, you said that
It
the
taught me
solo
that
was the most intimidating part, right?
it was, and it was also the most powerful part because I had never done anything solo, and I was scared that I was going to be incredibly bored, and I just didn't know what I would possibly do just sitting by myself for 3 days. It just sounded like the worst possible punishment you could have. But I journaled and we fasted, and what came out of me in that journaling was just this intense connection to Mother Nature. And that as long as I can have this in my life, I can be happy.
Hmm.
And it doesn't cost money. And I think that's really what it was. Like, I don't have to have money to be happy. All I need is nature, and it's free.
I think that's a pretty dicey concept that's worth unpacking. I don't think we need to spend our time doing that here, but I mean, have you ever had someone push back against you on that idea that accessing nature is free?
I have, but I guess I don't quite understand it because, yes, you do need money to go into a national park, and you do need money to camp at a campground, but those things have never interested me. I avoid national parks like they're the plague because they're so crowded and there's fees for every single thing you're trying to do. But just to walk into a BLM land or a national forest does not cost any money. And it's something that I'm very grateful for as an American,
Mm-hmm.
that these things exist. And people like John Muir and Roosevelt and people like that, did the things that they did to preserve these lands and
Mm-hmm.
to make them. But the whole idea was that we need to keep some things free for all Americans. And if we're not enjoying these things, what's the point in having them?
Mm.
Is kind of what I've always
Yeah,
figured.
yeah, yeah. Well said. Wait, let's get back to your life story, Scott. I want to see if I get this correctly. You grew up
Yeah.
in Ohio. You love skateboarding. Didn't want to have a normal job. Did some college, but didn't graduate. And then in your 20s, had like more of a normal, I don't know what else to do except get a job and make money and drink and
Yeah.
party, work in Ohio. That's what everyone else is doing.
Hmm.
But then you sat down with your wife at the end of your 20s, and you're like, we got to do something else because I've been reading these books by these amazing people who are, and you already had this kind of exposure to Colorado and the Outward Bound trip earlier in your life, and so in your 30s you were in Colorado and trying to get these jobs like the sales jobs you mentioned, where you
Right.
can earn a good amount of money without spending too much time working, so you can go outdoors and play in Colorado, which is why you're there. But it
Right.
wasn't until your 40s that you kind of entered into this modern stage of life as a writer and a full time writer, because as you told me, you wrote those words for your first book, Wilderness Gateway to the Soul, in your
Right.
early 40s. And did I pretty much get this correct? Are those the main decadal phases of your life, Scott?
Yes. Yes, I would say you did.
Yeah. Are there any turning points that I'm missing here, like watershed moments, literally or figuratively?
No, it's always been a journey of how can I make this, how can I make nature even more part of my life? And really, the first thing you said in the beginning of this interview is, um, how do I walk desert canyons? I've been trying to figure this out for half a lifetime. That's always been at the forefront of all of it, and I think it's been working my way towards books, writing
Mm,
books,
mm,
because writing was never the goal. I had no goal to ever be a writer. Um, but writing just happened from being out in nature, and it ended up being the business that led to ultimate freedom. And I look back at all these things, and they were all working their ways towards figuring out writing. They were all pointing me on this path, to writing and inspiring other people that yes, they can do these things, and it might not be working an insurance job or following the same path that I did or starting off at a bank or selling cars or any of it. And I don't think any of it that actually even matters. It's
mm.
a mindset of I'm going to prioritize lifestyle and I'm going to prioritize freedom. And it's a philosophy. And that's really what the I Don't Want to Grow Up book is about. It's not, these are the steps that you do. It's a philosophy that you can use for any line of work or any phase of your life, whether you have a bunch of money or you have nothing to your name but a credit card, like I did.
Yeah,
It's possible. It's 100% possible for anyone to do this.
yeah, yeah. I think the reason I love getting into the nitty gritty and even what feels like the boring
Sure.
details and backstory is that, like you said earlier, with young people looking at social media posts and saying, "Oh, the only people who can afford to go spend most of their time in nature must be trust fund babies."
Right.
I feel like with pure philosophy, it can lead to those sorts of negative thoughts
Hmm.
also, and and I think there's actually something super humanizing about knowing that you had like a full time bank job and you were kind of miserable for almost a decade.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's why I love to do these interviews and to dig into the backstory here. I do want to move on to your modern existence as a writer because what's pretty clear to me and clearly thousands of people who have reviewed your books online is that you have this pretty unique way of describing in basic accessible language like the experience of to me it's the experience of being a city person going into wilderness and feeling this spiritual level connection
Hmm.
with you mostly are documenting the Western United States in your books, as far as I can tell, like
Correct. Yes.
Rockies and West, and a lot of what you've written, I'm sure you've heard this like a bajillion times now, but a lot of what you've written is really descriptive of what I have felt in my time in wilderness and have not been able to put so eloquently in such words. And so you're telling me, Scott, that writing was never the goal or the intention, but somehow you were able to put these nature experiences, these wilderness immersion experiences, into very clear writing. And like,
Correct.
where did that come about? I feel like this is another question that lots of people want to know, which is like, if you
Yeah.
can write like this and you didn't start as a writer, where did it really gestate?
Yes. So it started as an experiment. I took photography in college. That was the one thing that I really loved. So I've always been into photography. And so when I went backpacking, I would spend my time. I'd bring my digital SLR camera, and I'd spend a lot of time taking photographs, and that I found that very enjoyable. So I was leaving for a solo trip. I would do these solo backpacking trips all the time. Sometimes I went with my wife, sometimes not, but a lot of times not. So I told my wife, "Hey, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to leave the camera at home." She's like, "Really?" Okay. And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna write about what I see this time." And she's like, "Okay, cool. Well, see how it goes." So I did that. I went into the desert and I wrote each evening and each morning about my experience. When I came home, uh, I read it to her, and she's like, "Yeah, that's pretty good. You should put it into a blog or something." So it's like, that's a pretty good idea. So I started a blog. And I started every time I go on a backpacking trip, I'd put my blog posts up, and I ended up bringing the camera eventually too. So I'd have a few photos to go with the things I was writing, and of course, it was friends and family. I probably had a list of 30 people or something on my blog, but I got a lot of encouragement. People seemed to like it; they'd share it, and it grew. It grew to several hundred people, and then several thousand people. And I kept doing this over the years, and finally, people were like, "Oh, you should put this into a book." And I'm like, "Nah, I don't know if it's a book. These are just blog posts." And people were more and more like, "Well, you should put it into a book." So I was like, "Well, I guess really, if you look at some of the Abbey stuff and the John Muir stuff, and a lot of the stuff that they have, they are journal entries if you really look at it." And so, okay, fine, I'll take my journal entries and I'll put them into a book. And I did that. And honestly, I didn't think it was that great, and it wasn't that great. It really wasn't. But I left this part of my job history out because I forgot about it. But I wanted to know how to publish books. So of course I got online and I started doing research. And I wasn't disenchanted with my current job. I don't even remember what it was. But so I found a company, a self-publishing company. I can't remember the name of them right now, but that was hiring. So like, oh, this would be great. I can make some money and I can get the inside scoop on how to publish. So I
I
did
love
that.
it.
And I went and worked for this self-publishing company. It was basically a company that, like, if you write a book, you then go to them and they'll like help you like get editors, and they'll help you
Yeah,
format the book and get it on
a
Amazon, all
vanity
that kind of stuff.
publishing company. Yeah,
Yeah, kind of like that. So I had no idea about any of this. I had no idea how any of this worked. So this was a huge learning experience. And so I learned about editors, and I started to watch the process where people would send their manuscript in, and it'd be crap, right? And then the editor would get it, and it'd be pretty decent after the editor was done with it. I'm like, wow, so these editors really do a huge job. So anyways, I after working for this, I ended up getting fired for this company. The only job I've ever actually been fired
really.
for taking
Please
too
tell me.
much time off.
Uh,
So
okay.
what I did, it was a work from home position, right? So I trained behind the scenes. I didn't tell them I was doing this. I guess this is why I got fired. But I taught my wife how to do my job as well, so that when I left, she would do it. So I was out on like a 2 week backpacking trip, and my wife was doing the job that I was supposed to be doing, and they found out. And I was like, I got back. I'm like, why do you care? It's like she's doing a great job. I guess I should have told you, but that everything's happening like it should. Well, they fired me anyways. And then of course, once that manager, that manager ended up leaving, and then the other manager called me and tried to hire me back like a few months later, but I had already moved on. But that's another story. Fact is, I learned about publishing. And I learned that how you find an editor, a really good editor, is to interview lots of them. So I reached out to all my favorite authors, Craig Childs, several of these other guys. Craig was great. And they all gave me editor referrals, people that were in my genre. And I finally ended up meeting a woman, Emma Murray, who's been my editor since day one. And she she was in Boulder, right where I lived, and she met with me and she agreed to be my editor. She was affordable, at least for me, and I became just enchanted with the process, because my journal entries were scribbling in a notebook, and I would type them out and I'd send them off to her, and she sent them back with all these red marks all over. You already said this, you repeated this word 16 times. This needs to be cleaned up, this and that. And together, we cleaned up my writing so that it actually it was good. I thought it was good.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, editors, who knew? So, and that's anytime I'm talking about people that are like, oh, I want to be a writer, but I don't know how to write. I'm like, everyone thinks they don't know how to write. Everyone does. Just write, write to your heart's content, and then get a good editor. and I'll show you how to do that. And together you can make your writing good. And as soon as I figured that, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life because I can just
Yeah.
literally write. And then with a good editor, we can clean it up together so that it flows. And once it
Yeah.
has that flow, it's a beautiful work of art. But it doesn't happen just because of me. You
Yeah.
know, that's Emma using her expertise to turn my thoughts that were just scribbled on a piece of paper into something beautiful. And it's a pretty neat creative process, to be honest.
I think that's great that you essentially discovered paid professional editors and that totally convinced you to go down this. I mean, it's striking to me how the same people who will pay many thousands of dollars for a new piece of outdoor gear or a bike or a vacation, something like that, will not dedicate that same amount of money to editing their own writing or a professional editor for your videos or whatever your creative output might be.
Right,
Because somehow
exactly.
it feels like you're cheating. It's like no, now it's not just me and my original authentic voice. And it's like get over yourself. Like
Exactly.
no one out there has some pure original authentic voice that gets no assistance from anyone else. And like invest in it. Invest in sharing your thoughts and feelings with the rest of the world. Um, it seems to me, Scott, that you are doing for other people what Edward Abbey and John Muir did for you in your 20s, which is trying to like open people's eyes to like the beauty of nature and wilderness experience, and then to say more, sometimes more directly, sometimes indirectly, you don't have to keep living in this kind of miserable repetitive fashion if that's what you're experiencing. You can spend more time out here too. It really is possible. It's accessible. It's not only for people who are magically rich or lucky. Um,
Right.
yeah, that seems to be the message behind a lot of what you post on social media. Uh, you're really trying to be an inspiration. Yeah?
Yes, yes. I'm trying to do exactly what you said. Those off. I think books are so important. Everything I've learned in this life is from books,
Mm,
whether it be nature books, self-help books. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich absolutely blew my mind when I read that for the first time. It basically just taught me that you can do anything with your life if you set your mind to it, and I find that to be 100% true. So yeah, if I can help people understand that, there's the youth of today is just they make me sad because there's such a I can't attitude out there right now, and a lot of those are for good reasons. I get it. The traditional lifestyle is expensive. Houses are $600,000 now. The average car is $55,000 somewhere in there. Um, it's not. Life is expensive the traditional way. And I think that's the reason I want to show these young people that there's a way that's not traditional that can be very enjoyable. And yeah, it's maybe more risky. Maybe it's not quite as predictable, but you're not waiting until you're 65 years old or 55 years old to finally live. You get to live now. And
yeah.
it's so if I can inspire a young person or any person of any age to live their life now rather than waiting to the point where they don't have the energy and they don't have the knees, they don't have the body to do the things that deep down inside their soul they're being called to do, then to me, I've succeeded as a human being.
Hmm. Hmm. We've talked a bit about your wife, Valerie, but I'm curious to
Yes.
learn a bit more about her and also learn if she's been working and if you were like a two income household and that enables you to do all the stuff you've been doing. Also, you mentioned that you've gone off on a number of adventures while she's back at home. Is she off on adventures
Hmm.
too? Does she go with you? Does her do her own thing? Tell me more about her.
She's always been a free spirit and kind of go with the flow kind of girl. She she's never really had like a career, I guess. But she's had a lot of just random jobs like I have. Part-time jobs, a couple full-time jobs. She she's always been open to helping me. Like I said, I taught her how to do the publishing business. I taught her how to do the insurance calls. Like, she's just kind of open to whatever allows us to keep living this freedom kind of lifestyle. Because she's like me, she loves to be in nature as much as possible. So she does help now with a lot of my editing. I found out that she is a great editor. So she will read my books like, I'm not even exaggerating, maybe 50 times before I publish them. And she finds things that the other editors miss. So she helps me with that. She helps me with my social media, the posting,
Ah, so
and
all those nice photos and little quotes are not actually you, huh? That's Valerie.
a lot of them, most of them is me.
Oh,
But
all
she
right.
kind of helps. She helps manage it, I should say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And is she off taking backpacking trips too? You're pretty clear in your writing that like backpacking is your thing. That's how you connect with nature. Like, what does she do with her time wealth and her freedom?
She's happy as can be hiking. She goes
Yeah.
hiking every single day. We live in Durango, Colorado now, where we're surrounded by absolutely beautiful mountains and hiking trails. So she hikes, she kayaks the river. Um, yeah, does yoga.
Fantastic.
Goes out with her
So
friends.
so a bit more of a day adventurer rather than like a multi-night overnight adventurer, which is what you seem to gravitate
Yeah,
toward.
and she's gone on backpacking trips with me, but I feel like over the years, the ground gets harder, the bugs bite harder, the wind blows harder, all that kind of stuff. So,
Sure. And just for the record, do you or Valerie have like any family support or any secret income sources that make this possible, or are you two hacking it out together in the wilderness of American capitalism?
yeah, definitely no, no financial assistance or trust funds or inheritances or anything like that. All the money I've earned by working, by making it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So do you have much like face-to-face interaction with younger people who are really hungry to learn how to live somewhat alternatively, or is it mostly through writing or through social media interaction?
It's through writing and social media interaction. I would like to, and I can
Yeah,
see maybe that happening in the future. I think that would be very rewarding to do something like that. But no, my I don't want to grow up book blew up on TikTok the
oh,
last few years, and so I have that's a big reason for some of my recent success. It's really blown up in the last couple of years, and that's from TikTok. And TikTok is a very young audience. I would
yeah.
say, I mean, I'm talking daily to anywhere from 16 to 20-year-olds, and
Like through comments or direct
comments. Yeah,
messaging? Comments, yeah.
comments, thousands and thousands and thousands of comments. Which
Wow.
I agree, I do have Valerie help me with. So,
Yeah.
um, I try to respond to as many of them as I can, but sometimes it might be Valerie. But we just want to get back to everybody.
Yeah.
And if we can help in any way, we do. And if you look at the comments, they're not just one word comments. We definitely have conversations with these people and try to help them that way.
So I'm curious, what are the biggest like questions or practical concerns that you hear through those TikTok comments? And also what kind of pushback or criticism or whataboutism might you hear from that age group?
They love to say, "Oh, this reeks with privilege." You've probably seen that, huh? This reeks of
Sure.
privilege,
How do
and
you
it's
respond to that?
um sometimes I don't. I've came up with this philosophy that I don't respond to negative comments anymore because a lot of them are what I would call haters, and the best thing you can do to validate their comments is to respond to them. So I just kind of just let them sit, and I find that actually other people will respond instead. And I found that they come up with some really interesting things that actually even are more helpful than I would come up with.
Oh,
So I kind of
like,
just leave the negative comments to the other people in
yeah.
the comment section, and that's worked really
C-
well. And it just
can
go ahead.
can you give me an example of like what other people might respond to the privilege critique?
I love when someone says we're all privileged. Anyone that lives in the United States is privileged. And
Hmm.
I do think that that's true, and probably in other countries too. But I can't speak for other countries that I haven't been to, so I can only speak for the one that I live in. But I think if you live in the United States, you are privileged. Um, Most people have a roof over their heads, food to eat. What else do we
So
need?
so essentially, you're saying you're not in living in actual destitute poverty, and as
Right.
long as like your legs function and you can get to a trailhead, then you can do some version of what I'm advocating.
And if you're on TikTok, you're privileged, right? You have a phone, you have internet.
Well,
So
I
I think that we're all privileged in that way. But we're not. What I wonder sometimes they're saying is that you have family inheritance if you're that kind of privileged, and obviously I'm not. But you can't just say that in the comments because people will doubt you, right?
hmm, hmm.
So
And
I just kind of leave those ones alone.
yeah, okay. So tell me about the positive ones, or the practical concerns that you're actually able to address.
Yeah. So gosh, there's so many different comments that come up. I just take them one at a time. And I try to give people hope. Um, there's a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety with these young people. And if I can just give them hope that, hey, there's another way to live. You don't have to figure out what you want to be for the rest of your life right now. And I think that's immense pressure that kids today have. They think that right now, when they're 18 years old or 17 years old, that they have to have their entire life figured out exactly what they're going to do. And I've never had that figured out. I still don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I have no idea. But to try to reassure them that they do not have to have that figured out. Take it one day at a time, and it's okay not to follow that traditional path.
So I wonder how much of this is related to school and higher education pressures, and especially if you
Yeah,
are
a lot of it
age
is.
18 and you don't have parents who can pay for higher education, then you're looking at
Right,
sizable student loans. In which case,
right,
the question of what do I want to do, and if by that we mean what do you want to do to make money,
right,
then that probably does take on a very outsized importance and must feel very high pressure, because if you're about to take on
right.
20, 30, $40,000 in student loans, then that actually is a very big decision that you
Oh
don't
yeah,
want to get wrong. Um,
right.
yeah,
And
I
I think kids today shouldn't jump into that. If you have something, if you want to be a doctor, then you have to go to college. That's obvious. But if you have no idea what you want to be, then just going to college and not knowing and incurring that student debt, I would think twice about that.
I'm on board. That's what my second book was all about. Um, is there anything else that strikes you as like a big theme of concern among young people who see your posts, who want to be out in nature and wilderness, but they feel this block? Um, is there anything else where you're like, oh, that people are really concerned about this thing? It doesn't seem like a big deal to me, but they sure think it's a big deal.
Right. Start with what you have, you know? Get this whole sprinter van mentality, I think is really
Mm,
um people now think that to enjoy nature you have to have like over $100,000, which is ridiculous. Um our first earth roaming vehicle was a early model Toyota Corolla with a roof rack, loaded down with kayaks, mountain bikes, backpacking gear in the trunk, and a jug of water and maybe a few cans of Dinty Moore beef stew rolling around in the back seat. you know, start with what you have. I love reading books about the old um, ski bum mentality where people would just move to a ski town with nothing but a sleeping bag and a pair of skis and a beater car, and they would just figure it out. And I think kids are so afraid to do anything like that now. to just go somewhere that you want to go with the clothes on your back, maybe, $100 in your wallet, whatever, and just figure it out once you get there.
Hmm.
Because what you find out, you start doing these things, and I know you know this, Blake. You do figure it out. You do figure out how to make it work and how to get a job and how to earn some income, and finally you meet somebody who needs a roommate. And you're not gonna just move there and suddenly move into a $3,000 a month apartment and have a job all lined up. But I think that's what kids think. They think you have to have everything all lined up perfectly before you take that first step.
Hmm.
And I say take the first step now. Figure it
Mm-hmm.
out as you get there. Figure it out as you go along. And that's how it's like the shortcut to life. It's just go. Just go.
Hmm.
Figure it out
Huh.
once you get there.
I like it. I agree. Scott, I would be remiss if I did not probe you on some specific wilderness areas that are dear to you. And I remember reading that you consider that the desert, the high desert canyon country area between Moab and Hanksville, Utah, to be
Yeah.
the creme de la creme in terms
Hmm.
of wilderness. Does that title still hold for that area? Because that's a nice specific thing that people can go Google. And if it's not the top contender anymore, do you have any other specific wilderness areas where you just think like, man, it does not get any better than this?
Um, yeah, I mean Utah, it's it's like at one hand you don't want to tell anyone about it, but at the same
Exactly.
on the other hand, there's so many canyons. There's so many canyons, and I still go into these canyons. I was just on a backpacking trip last week, walked into a canyon, and I'm not talking about a popular one that you're gonna find on the internet. I'm just talking about any canyon. You can still walk into a canyon in Utah and not see anyone for days, probably even weeks. And to me, that's true adventure.
Mm.
And these are on BLM lands or wilderness areas where there's not advanced reservations, there's not permits, there's not fees. You can go have a real adventure, very similar to the way people did hundreds of years ago, and you can do
Mm-hmm.
that today. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that is true wilderness, and it does require some adventurous spirit and some safety, of course, of letting someone know where you're going and not ended up dead in the desert, but you can truly have a wilderness experience in these canyons of Utah, if you play it safe.
I agree, and I tell my friends in Europe that the most underrated part of the U.S. Is canyon country in Utah and northern Arizona,
Yeah,
maybe even western Colorado. They don't have the big glitzy national parks aside from maybe Arches you might have heard of.
of
and
course.
and you can go out there and immediately there's no cell phone service. You're on your own. It would be the same as if you were there 300 years ago, and good luck to you. Be careful, but it's
Yeah.
beautiful, and very few people talk about it. Very few people go there. um
And
Great.
even if you just like hike into a canyon for a mile, like it doesn't have to be this great big excursion. I've gone on backpacking trips where I've literally backpacked in for a few miles, set up camp and not left for 3 days. Just
Yeah.
meditating, soaking in nature, writing, reflecting on life, and watching the buzzards soar. So it doesn't
Mm.
have to be some big 2,500-mile through hike. It can literally just be even a day hike into a canyon with a backpack and a bag of nuts, and that can be your adventure, and it can be great.
And unlike one of the established through hiking trails, there's not the accumulated feces of thousands of other people along the one same
Yeah,
minuscule
the one
corridor,
trail. Yeah,
the one
yeah.
trail to rule them all. That's right. You
Yep.
can you can have your own little canyon out there in Utah. All right, give me one other area. How about this? One other underrated wilderness area that you've run into out there. I know you're not going to give us your absolute favorite because you probably don't want to talk about that publicly. Give us your second favorite one. Um, uh,
I mean,
yeah,
really,
blow my mind, Scott.
any wilderness area. The Eagle Cap Wilderness in Oregon. Go
I've
there.
never heard of that. Which part of Oregon is that?
Eastern Oregon.
Okay, nice. Like east
Eastern
of
Oregon.
Bend?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Um, I've only been there once, but it was absolutely astoundingly beautiful. And there are, if you go by the lakes, you're going to see people because people love lakes. But if you don't and you don't want to camp by a lake, you can find total solitude out there as well.
Mm.
But there's so many. Don't just go there. I mean, any place in Idaho, any wilderness area in Idaho is going to be fantastic. Montana, um, you can find solitude for weeks out in these places.
Mm. And do you have any trips coming up later this year, 2026, that you're especially excited about?
Oh, you know, I don't have them really planned. We just went to Indonesia, so I'm starting to do more. I'm wanting to do more international travel. So we're in Indonesia for a month, and I'm really starting to fall in love with the ocean more and the vast wilderness of the ocean, where you can also find solitude for days and days and
Mm.
days. So I'm getting more into a sport called wing foiling, which is it's like windsurfing with a hydrofoil.
Hmm.
And so I'm starting to think about doing more ocean exploration and really connecting more with the ocean. So I don't really know. I plan to plan my trips last minute. So there'll probably be many of these trips in 2026, but nothing is planned yet. But it will probably be somewhere tropical.
Mm. And if I'm correct, Scott, you've got 8 books out there kicking around in the world. And do you have any others that you're working on?
Um, I have lots of ideas. I always have a ton of ideas for books. I have not landed on what the next book is going to be yet. But I will say my last book came out last September, so it's still pretty new. That's my introvert book, and about solitude as a path to as a gateway to creative genius. And
Hmm.
so I'm still kind of just kicking back after writing that book and trying to do a little bit more marketing on that one. So that's where some of my efforts are.
Hmm. And how much time do you spend doing book marketing, or maybe you and Valerie combined in an
Yeah,
average week, Scott? Does that take up a lot of your time?
it depends on what you mean by that, but I spend about 2 hours a day on book marketing.
Okay, cool. But that's pretty much your work, right?
That
Aside from
is
the
that is
actual
mine.
writing.
Yeah, that is my work, and my writing. I'm not your typical writer where I sit down and I write every day. I go for weeks without writing anything. I mainly write while I'm like out in nature or on the trail. So I don't write like every day like a fiction writer might.
Yeah.
So I really that really is my only work is that 2 hours a day I spend in the morning on social media, and I find that works well. And then once I'm editing, I might spend 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day when I'm editing a book, but that only goes on for maybe a month.
Hmm. And one more practical question for you, which is, do you find it harder to go away on longer backpacking trips or wilderness excursions now that you have a minor social media empire to maintain? Do you feel more tethered to the computer?
Um, I try to be very conscious of that, and I don't let it interfere. So if I want to go on a backpacking trip, I just go. And the social media is going to be there when I get back, and I don't care that I didn't do anything for a few days.
Hmm.
But the days that I'm home, I do work every day, just because I'm home, and why not? I mean, I'm here. But no, I would say not. I don't let it interfere because that's still my number one goal in life is that freedom,
Hmm.
and that will never change.
I think that's a good place to end. If people want to find you and your writing online, Scott, where should they go? What should they check out?
Yeah. So it's pretty easy just to Google Scott Stillman and everything will come up that way. Or you can go to my blog, scottstillmanblog.com, and all my books are there.
Fantastic.
I also
And
have a growing Substack group, I guess I could mention. So if you
yeah,
want to
I
look me
was
up on Substack.
I was going to say
Um,
Substack, both following your official newsletter there, but also following your Substack account because you do a lot of Substack notes that are seem pretty popular.
yeah, my niece recommended Substack to me a while back. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. And I just, on a whim, just signed up and started posting some stuff. And Substack's pretty cool. It really is. It's much more
Yeah.
reader like writing, like real actual writing. It's not all this political BS that you see on Facebook and sites like that.
Hmm.
It really seems tailored to writing.
Yeah.
So I've kind of embraced that. I really like Substack
Good.
and the people that are on there.
Well, I look forward to interacting with you online, Scott, and maybe crossing paths out in Durango or someplace in the wilderness someday soon.
All right, Blake.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thanks, Scott.
Alrighty.